we'll find that working with CEOs, they've got three things that they're concerned about. And so they want their organization to be sustainable. So if they're a startup business, it's like, I've got to be able to get to the point where I'm sustainable. They want it then to be repeatable, and then they want it to be scalable, right? And so you can see similarities in the way that we work with the cloud environment as to how that would come together. And we're going to at least I'll give you some observations as to what Milestone is seeing happening with cloud adoption and the benefits associated with it. So, as the slide states, from our perspective, we're serving usually in a CTO, a Chief Technology Officer, or a CIO role within organizations. We're part of the management team. And serving in that role with regard to cloud, we've seen the adoption piece and concerns around adoption to fall really into a couple of different camps. One in particular is just poor information and confusion around the technology or confusion around how it's used. And so we play an education role. And so we'll work with an organization and helping them with their business strategy. And as we do that, we leverage a set of financial models that we've created at Milestone. And so we're looking at, all of the associated costs from an IT organization or delivering of their IT services. So they could be a software company delivering software as a service. They could be another technology company with other products. But we're going to include all those associated costs, and we're going to model that out. And what we have found in looking at a traditional capital purchase model is organizations, and you've probably been there, you're looking ahead and you're saying, where is my company going to be in the next 2 to 3 years? What's the capacity that I'm going to have to run these strategic applications? And so you're going to go and buy that capacity, knowing full well that initially you're not going to need all that capacity, but that's just been the world that you've lived in. So I'm going to go buy that capacity and bring it in. So when you think about cloud, you're actually consuming a set of capacity and paying for it each month based on what you're consuming. So essentially you're able to get the benefits of performance and scalability and this agility piece that Pat was talking about at a much lower price. So other benefits, aside from just the hardware or licensing piece that you're going to have, we're also looking at access to human capital and tools, because that can come along with the cloud environment as well. And so things like being able to do upgrades to a database or an operating system, getting patches installed, backups, recoveries, there's a whole slew of things that come along with that you can source and buy that helps your organization grow. And when you look at the financial model, now you're just paying for a fraction of those costs each month as part of growing your business. So you might be large enough where that makes sense to have some of those things in-house, or you may be, this is a new area for the business and you want to grow it, and that business is tied to a particular set of P&Ls, and I want to see what those costs are, and I want to understand what my true profit is on that piece of your business. Cloud becomes a great option for that, and being able to source that talent also becomes a great option. So a couple of other things that we've seen that delay the adoption or maybe create some confusion is around security. And I think we heard today, okay, well, what if you're moving things out to the cloud? What's the national security fears associated with that? To be honest with you, when I'm working with organizations and I'm looking at what they already have in their infrastructure, moving things to, again, the right cloud provider, they're actually going to get better and improved service around security and compliance. And I'll talk to you about a case study with one company that we've been working with, and I'll highlight some of those in a minute. The other one is just around control. The fear of, can I still control this environment? Absolutely. VMware is going to talk about some of the tools, and you look at the tools that are associated with being able to run these environments and scale them up and scale them down as well, right? So you may have a business that, certain parts of the month, you've got real peaks in your web utilization or in your application. So you establish these floors, and you can be controlling that environment, and again, controlling your costs. So really, all of those things become somewhat of not maybe an excuse, but things that we can easily show from a financial modeling and or a business strategy that they may not really play a part in that business. I've got a couple of other benefits that you can read on the slide, or maybe you've had, but I wanted to go to the next slide and talk about this case study with DECA Financial Services. Milestone Advisors is the CIO for DECA, and Working with the management team last year, we were working on a technology strategy that fit into their business. They were a startup. A gentleman who had left a prior organization had sold it. I want to do something again. I'm going to start this up, and I want to hit $2 million in 2010. And so, working with that founder, we were able to lay out a strategy, and we suggested they select Bluelock as their cloud partner. And so they did. And in the first year, they were able to save 91% of their startup costs that they had anticipated spending because they had done this before, right? And so they were able to bring that savings in, and you can see details around that case study by going to Bluelock's website. But you'll find there are a number of things that fell into play, and I'll list a few other things just beyond the financial benefits that DECA is experiencing. One in particular is they've got a sales team that's rapidly trying to grow this business. And so they're out there selling, and you've got an operations team, much like maybe some of you have, right, who is figuring out, well, how am I going to absorb all of these new deals coming in? Well, with the infrastructure and the environment that they've set up, they can literally turn on in minutes and grow that environment. So the concern of the past around, okay, do I have enough capacity? Can I actually take on these new clients and absorb it into my business? Becomes something that they can push away to other issues that they've got to focus on in the business. Another one is around security and compliance. DECA's business is largely with financial institutions, banks, and other large finance companies. And as you can imagine, there are certain compliance standards and other things that they're looking for. Well, with the environment, they've actually been able to show all of the compliance needs and, in fact, run rapidly through those compliance checklists from these large banks. And in the past, that was a very difficult piece to move through for their former business that they had, this organization, and what they had sold off, right? So they had spent years to get some of those compliance in place and had literally spent millions of dollars to reach the same spot that they were in a matter of 6 months, just due to the way that they provisioned the service. One other thing that's come to play is just having some flexibility. And so I'll give you an example. It just occurred last month. They were getting ready to perform their first major upgrade on the software platform they had. So they had selected a SaaS provider. They'd also gone out and hosted with a telephony company to have a hosted dialer platform. So to be able to test and pull all these pieces together, they really needed to test this at the next level, kind of final test in the production environment. So here's what they were able to do. Late in the evening, after the business operations were done, they were able to make a flash, make a copy of that production environment, perform the upgrade, do the final testing, all the while knowing that if they found some major problems in that testing cycle, they can revert back to the production environment. And they can do that, again, in a matter of minutes, given some of the technology that VMware is going to speak about, right? So they had access to that, and they could not have performed any of those types of services. It would have been literally cost prohibitive for the type of business they were in to have acquired that type of technology and to have done that had it not been really for a cloud strategy. So I do want to maybe at least note too that organizations that we're working with and sitting with the management team, it's not just for startups. We're seeing some significant savings occurring and business benefits in their strategy by looking at cloud. And so we recommend that be a strategic part and something to leverage with each of the companies that we're working with. And in fact, we see the cloud and this whole environment as it begins to evolve being a sustainable, long-term paradigm shift. And I think it's much like what we can reflect back to in terms of the mainframe, or client server, or network computing. So we see this as a strategy that every organization needs to consider closely and take a look at how it might fit with their business strategy. So I hope you find that helpful.